Let's turn our focus to the Mirror Now campaign that has got tremendous response from viewers. We've been focusing on an issue that has led to the harassment of Delhi citizens for months now. A policy that began to implement a court order has turned into a tool to target citizens. In the guise of ridding the capital's roads of old cars, the Transport Department is allegedly picking up vehicles without notice. Viewers tuning in have been talking about a possible nexus of corruption, with some claiming they have to bribe officials to get their old cars back. So what's the issue? Citizens' overage vehicles, defined as 15 years old in the case of petrol and 10 years for diesel, are being ruthlessly towed away without any kind of notice or information being given to their owners, as per the allegations of some citizens. From outside people's homes and offices, from parking spots inside residential complexes and societies, even cars given for repairs at workshops all across the city are being randomly picked up, as the Transport Department is on a spree to seize and scrap vehicles. This is a policy which came into being on May 29th, and already over 3,000 vehicles like these have been scrapped. That means in just about the last 2 months. Now, these are some serious allegations that are being made and raise questions of whether there is more to the story. The fact of the matter is that any government policy cannot be implemented in such a shoddy manner that tramples over citizens' rights. There are presently 53 lakh deregistered vehicles in Delhi today. So what is the right being violated? It is the right to property, and it's interesting to understand this in terms of Indian law. The right to property was a fundamental right till the year of 1978. This was changed then in the name of land reforms and to suit the government's need to acquire land for various reasons, including infrastructural projects. But right to property does remain a constitutional right under Article 300A. It is these set of rights of the people of Delhi that are being trampled upon. Listen in to some of those voices.
They came in pretty fast. They just took in and they were like, we are taking this away, as this is this has been, a 15 years plus car, and we couldn't stop it.
It's an harassment because if a person has the right documentation and they're not breaking any law by keeping the car, if you're driving a car that's older than 15 years, then that's a different problem. But if the car is not being driven anywhere, then they should at least inform the people before taking the car away, or they should provide compensation for it.
इस डर में रहना कि तुम्हारे खुद के घर से गाड़ी ले जाई जाए, I don't think we can live like this, right? I think this is an extreme violation of our right to property.
उनको पहले कम से कम नोटिस देना चाहिए था उनको कि हम ऐसे आपकी गाड़ी उठाएंगे, पहले बताना चाहिए था. ये गलत तरीका है. गवर्नमेंट को कम से कम पहले उनको नोटिस दें या इन्फॉर्म करें कि हम आपकी गाड़ी उठाने आ रहे हैं. ये बिल्कुल गलत है.
मेरे खुद कज़न की गाड़ी उठाई गई. हमने बहुत सारी एमसीडी को रिक्वेस्ट भी डाली कि आप कम से कम एट द मोमेंट इसको ना उठाएं. आप हमें 1-2 दिन का नोटिस दे दीजिए. 1-2 दिन का नोटिस हमें दे दीजिए. हम लोग इसको डिस्पोज ऑफ कर देंगे, क्योंकि हम भी पोल्यूशन के लिए और इन्वायरमेंट के लिए चिंतित हैं. लेकिन विदाउट एनी इंटीमेशन अगर गाड़ी उठा ली जाती है, बहुत सारी दिक्कतों का सामना करना पड़ता है.
अभी रोड टैक्स भी दे रहे हैं और सब कुछ दे रहे हैं, और उसके बाद उसका क्या बेनिफिट मिल रहा है? और अभी तक उसकी कोई ये चोरी की तरह गाड़ी उठाई जा रही है.
यही है कि मैडम जो है ना, अचानक ऐसे चोरों की तरह आ रहे हैं, और मालिक ओनर वहाँ पे नहीं भी है तो गाड़ी के सीधा जैक उठाते हैं, टो करके ले जाते हैं.
इसमें सरकार को सबसे पहले अवेयरनेस के ऊपर काम करना चाहिए. जिसकी गाड़ी वो डी रजिस्टर तो कर देते हैं, लेकिन उन लोगों को जो है फिजिकली आकर के पता नहीं करते कि वो बंदा वहाँ रह रहा है कि नहीं रह रहा है. गाड़ी कहीं खड़ी होती है, चुपचाप वो गाड़ी उठा करके ले जाते हैं. और एक व्यक्ति के साथ वीकेंड में ऐसा हुआ, उसने जब उनको कुछ पैसे ऑफर किए तो उसकी गाड़ी छोड़ करके चले गए. इससे भ्रष्टाचार बढ़ता है.
मेरे एक दोस्त की गाड़ी उठी गेट नंबर 1 से ही, लेकिन ना उसको ना कोई नोटिस था ना कुछ था. एमसीडी में भी काफ़ी धक्के खा लिए, लेकिन कुछ उसका पता नहीं चला उस गाड़ी का. अगर ये बात अभी सर ने सही बोली थी, अगर हमें नोटिस दे दिया या इन्फॉर्मेशन दे दी जाए तो कम से कम उस गाड़ी को डिस्पोजल कर सकते हैं.
यहाँ पे बिल्कुल वो आए थे, और ऐसे आते हैं 2-3 उनके साथ पुलिस वाले होते हैं, और 1-2 लोग, वो 3 लोग सिविल ड्रेस में होते हैं. ये पता ही नहीं लग पाता है कि ये लोग वास्तव में उठाने वाले हैं या कबाड़ी लोग हैं. और जब उनसे शिकायत करते हैं, कहना जी बस हमें तो उठानी है, ऐसा सरकार का आदेश है. जब उनसे सरकार का नोटिफिकेशन मांगा जाता है तो उसको दिखाते, वो भी नहीं दिखाते. कैसा नोटिफिकेशन हमारे पास में नहीं है, अब बताइए आप विदाउट नोटिफिकेशन हम उनको कैसे आइडेंटिफाई करें कि यू आर द जेन्युइन फॉलो और द थेफ्ट. तो ये बड़ी मुसीबत है. और मैम आके एकदम से पूरी कॉलोनी में चाउस की स्थिति पैदा हो जाती है। इसको संभालना हमारे लिए बड़ा मुश्किल होता है। हम लोगों ने उनसे बहुत निवेदन किया कि आप लोग ऐसा ना करें, लेकिन वो किसी सुनने के लिए तैयार नहीं है और वो पुलिस के दबाव के आगे ज़बरदस्ती गाड़ियों में चेन लगा के उसको उठा कर ले जाते हैं।
All right, let's begin our campaign. Rabbi Shergill, Indian musician, is with us first. Rabbi, great to have you on the show. And thank you for lending your voice to an issue that we're raising. You know, what's astonishing is this has been going on for over 2 months in the national capital. And nobody is talking about it. Nobody is talking about what people are suffering. What do you make of that?
I'm listening to the stories. They are absolutely horror stories, and it seems clearly heavy-handed. This seems like the government is arm twisting us. What about the coal and fly ash production? What about the soil and road dust? What about the secondary particles? What about biomass burning? What about municipal solid waste? Would the government go to similar lengths to snuff out the problem at the source, like they're doing with poor vehicle owners? I find this absolutely dystopian.
Yeah. The idea over here is not to say that Delhi does not need a solution to its pollution problems. It's about how you take, and that's what we've been trying to say in our campaign. This is how you take what is intended to be a solution and turn it into a tool of harassment by not even telling people you're picking up their vehicles.
See, look, IIT in its study says that vehicular pollution contributes only 6 to 9%. And this is a 2016 study. And now we're in 2023 with this new protocols, BS6 engines and all of that. So it must have gone down. I mean, it's, simple math. But what about coal and fly ash? How many coal plants has the government decommissioned, which contributes 37 to 26%? What about soil and road? I mean, how many tire companies have been, thrown out or somehow curtailed for producing substandard tires? What about these roads which come off after 20 minutes of shower? What about biomass burning? I mean, biomass burning is simply people just burning their kachra. So that contributes about 5 to 7% more than vehicular pollution, according to an IIT study.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here? I mean, they just want to just do some random stuff, and so that it looks like the government is proactive.
Yeah.
But really, they're just picking on poor, solitary vehicle owners because they are not. See, the corporations are together. They have the government's ear. What is a little guy on the street going to do when they come with 5 guys and tow his vehicle away? This is just clearly, I don't know, I am filled with rage, and this is just plain wrong. I mean, why don't they just go and ask for fitness certificates? I mean, why do we have 30-year-old coal plants burning? Why do we have substandard tires making it into the market? Why is no single contractor taken to task for producing substandard roads, which contributes 26 to 27%? What are we talking about here? I mean, this is beyond ridiculous.
Rabbi, the point you're making, that they're picking on the little guy, the low-hanging fruit, to show that you're doing something about pollution. Okay, this is a rule. The NGT has passed it. The Supreme Court has upheld it. So the government has to implement it. But will you at least not tell people? There are horror stories. Someone has sent their vintage car to the mechanic and they have pasted a notice outside the door of the mechanic, picked up the car and gone.
This is the way the government is actually going about. This is the nitty-gritty of administration. But I think at the policy level itself, it is beyond ridiculous. The policy is ridiculous, and its implementation is even more so.
Yeah, absolutely. Rabbi, thank you for giving the time and lending your voice to this. And I know we're talking about a very serious issue, but as a big fan, I have to ask you to sing something for us and lend your support to the voice of the people of Delhi who've been suffering in silence.
See, Delhi is, I've written a song for Delhi. जागेगी रात भर, भागेगी साथ पर कर डालेगी ये बेलगाम ख्यालों को, पूछेगी ये सवाल, ना मांगेगी ये हिसाब, ना सुनेगी तेरे इन जवाबों को. यहाँ है एक नदी और वहाँ है एक लाल किला, पर कहाँ है इस शहर का फलसफा. यहाँ आंसू और गीत और जवानी थी मैंने तेरे नाम की, आवारा थी रात और सड़कें थी मेरे बाप की, और मैं था और तू थी और थी दिल्ली बस. So आज तो मेरी कविता स्वीकार कीजिए, but it's just that it's heartbreaking to see the city I've grown up in, the city I've loved, and I don't really know if the city is me or I'm the city, and to see that thing change to this level, we've seen, I don't know how long you've been here, but I've grown up in Delhi all my life. So, first they came and they allowed houses to build beyond the master plans. Then they allowed them to add an extra floor. And then they asked them to, they didn't give us parkings. They didn't give us, they collect road tax, they don't give us parking. It's one thing after another, and to see this city turn into some sort of, science fiction slum from the 25th century is heartbreaking. I mean, this is a city that I've loved. I've swam in the Yamuna, and you can barely, hold your breath while crossing it. I mean, you can't even, it's polluted so much that your ears and nose might fall off. So, I don't know, we deserve better governance. We don't need this nonsense. This is beyond ridiculous now.
Absolutely. That's just beautifully done, Rabi. Beautifully done. Thank you. आपकी कविता के लिए बहुत-बहुत शुक्रिया. I can feel your pain. I'm not a Delhiite. I'm a Mumbai girl, but I can feel the pain that you are talking about, and it's not fair. It's not fair to take citizens for granted anywhere. Thank you, Rabbi Shergill, there lending his voice to a very important campaign, the Citizens Campaign. I'm going to continue this conversation now with Anurag Saxena, petitioner and automobile engineer. Hormazd Sorabjee, editor of Autocar India, is with us on the show. Sachin Taparia, founder of Local Circles, is also joining us. Thank you to all of you for speaking with us today. Hormazd, I was keen to speak to you about this issue just to understand this 10-year diesel and 15-year petrol sort of rule which has come in. The intent on paper was perhaps noble. It started in 2014 that, Delhi suffers from pollution, all polluting cars must go. But is 10 years and 15 years as a blanket the right way to look at reducing pollution from automobiles?
I mean, to be honest, just choosing these random dates, 10 and 15, to me is completely illogical, unscientific. It doesn't, I don't know why. Why 10? Why not 8? Why not 5? Why not 15? I don't know how they came up with 10 and 15. I think if they wanted to have cutoff, they could have had it when emission standards change, because clearly after that, the cars before that have a poorer emission standards. So, 2005 was when you went from BS2 to BS3. 2010, it was when you went from BS3 to BS4. So, it's not been done that way. And it's not to say that let's say, a BS6 vehicle after 10 years will become polluting. That's definitely not the case. Because the way cars today, you have, let's say, OBD sensors, everything which makes sure that your emission devices are functional. If they are not, warning lights come on, the cars, you're told you have to get it fixed. So there's really no logic to a well-maintained modern car becoming a polluting car suddenly after 10 years or after 15 years in the case of diesel. But I think this is the problem with the NGT. Totally high-handed, illogical in the way they just come up with, these sort of norms. They are the ones who are on this rampage of trying to ban diesel, which again, I think is ridiculous, because Today, we know that diesel emits less CO2 than even petrol. And in this age of global warming, CO2 is the enemy. And so it's again ridiculous trying to just go hammer and tongs against diesel. So really, it is totally illogical the way they've chosen this time frame, because as I said, age doesn't make sense. If at all it was logical, it's when the emission norms change, because clearly that is kind of a cutoff between a less polluting vehicle and not so and a more polluting.
So 1 minute,
vehicle.
Hormazd, 1 minute. Just a quick follow up here. So it's illogical, you're saying, to simply say any vehicle which is 10 years and diesel will be polluting, any vehicle which is 15 years old and petrol will be polluting. You have to check that specific vehicle. Secondly, look at the options they've given. So you get your car out of Delhi if it's 10 or 15 years old, depending on diesel or petrol, or you pay a large sum of money to turn it into an electric vehicle, or you get an NOC so you can ply it outside the state or sell it outside the state. We've been speaking to people who say that in every case it's a lose-lose. They're going to lose a lot of money and be forced to buy a new car even if their current one is working perfectly fine.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, there's no doubt that a car with an older, meeting an older emission standard won't be as clean as one meeting a new emission standard. But really, as your earlier panelist has said, overall cars, they pollute not completely, they pollute just a fraction to the overall pollution. And clearly, I think that's we got to look at it in a kind of an absolute term, because in an absolute way, you've got other things like road dust, you've got construction, you've got so many things adding to the pollution. So it's not. I think the cars just become a kind of a whipping boy, which constantly it's the easiest, the lowest hanging fruit for the authorities to go after. So I think while principally it makes sense, I think it's, in overall, it isn't going to make much of a difference. And I think it's very, very anti-poor to kind of force people to change their car after 10 years, especially if it's in perfect running condition. And if you look at it right now, a 10-year-old diesel would still be a BS4 diesel, which isn't really a bad emission standard. It's a pretty good emission standard. It's not like it's BS3 or BS2 when they were really polluting. BS4, they all had to have common rail injection systems, which are far more cleaner than the older diesels. So to force someone to scrap a car, let's say bought in 2013, it just doesn't make sense for me, especially if it's well maintained.
Okay, so this is a petition that Anurag Saxena, and he's on our panel this evening, actually took to the court. To say that, don't do this arbitrary 10 years and 15 years, check the vehicle. Anurag, tell us why you went to court and what happened.
The fans in the Honorable Supreme Court are more than 60 years old, first issue. Second issue, which is a very clear thing, that you have MiG-21 fighter aircrafts flying, and they're more than 35, 40 years. The trains which are there are more than 20 years. So aren't they causing pollution? One man's bread cannot be other man's saw. It has to be equal to everything. You have to understand one simple thing. If you're saying pollution is the main cause, is pollution the exact cause of why you're banning? Or is it to suffice the dealers, the car manufacturers, or the people who are in this industry? Let's talk about it in a very clear-cut manner. Most of the automobile companies are owned by relatives of big people. Their sales are not going. So what do? Enhance the scales. Today it is Delhi. Tomorrow it will be Calcutta. Day after it will be Mumbai. Then after that it will be Chennai. Is this the real logic of banning a car? And will banning a car clear the pollution? The answer is big no. Why it is a big no? Because the pollution hotspots in Delhi are all full of basic small-scale industrial hubs. Go to Jahangirpuri. Go to Lakshmi Nagar. Go to all those places. You have factories and factories which are running. So those are the things which are there. You must understand one simple thing, Tamanna, like what Rabbi Shergill said. Pollution has got lot many other things. The world's cleanest city is, like I said
Anurag,
yesterday
what happened
also,
with you when
is
you went to court?
allows-
When you went to court and said all of this, what happened with you? Because we have to understand where this will go. This is something that the NGT has passed, the Supreme Court has upheld. The government,
We went to NGT.
the government
Tamanna
went to
Inamdar.
court and said that, you know, please re-look at it. Nothing really has happened. What was your experience in court?
First, we went to NGT. The Honorable NGT dismissed our petition, stating that the Supreme Court has taken care of this particular thing. We cannot adjudicate upon it. We went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court clearly says that this matter is not worth a PIL. You are wanting personal motivation. Your motivation is not this thing, it is to gain publicity. Where is the question of publicity? I spoke for 8 long minutes, and in the open court, I was challan 8 lakh rupees. The order came for 50,000 rupees, which after my apologies became 0. That is not the contention. The contention is, why is the pollution the issue, or is the old cars the issue? Where exactly is the dividing line between a polluting vehicle and a non-polluting vehicle? Today, you have electric cars being pushed. You have batteries which are being manufactured. Let's talk about the e-rickshaws which have lead acid batteries instead of lithium ion batteries. The kind of pollution which they do. Let's talk about electric vehicles which have got lithium ion batteries. You'll be surprised to know, Tamanna, that to extract a battery, how much lithium has to go in, how much water is going to be wasted. We have reserves in Jammu and Kashmir.
No, that's true. That's true. But, you know, we have to look at it all things considering. I mean, the fact that electric vehicles are cleaner and better for the environment is well known. Are we ready for it yet? Can you force it down people's throat?
Do we have enough electricity to charge those vehicles? A. Do we have enough fuel stations for charging? We accept all those. So we have all those things. But the basic issue which remains is, are those electric vehicles going to be pollution free? What about, as Rabi Shehgal said, what about the tires? What about the roads? What about the maintenance? And
whatever you decide, whatever you decide, you clearly can't be high-handed. You can't be high-handed and just come and take people's stuff. I think that's the basic cause of natural justice has to be followed. Let me get Sachin Taparia in, who has been collating data on this.
Take a minute of yours. Yeah. As Sorabjee said, today's cars have Bharat Stage 4 norms, which are much better and cleaner than there, and they have got everything which is there to it.
No, there are also a lot of khataras on the road. There are also a lot of khataras on the road. There are also a lot of polluting vehicles on the road.
What about commercial vehicles?
But you have to discern. You have to discern. You have to discern, and you have to at least give a notice to someone. You can't just pick up their stuff. Okay, Sachin Taparia now. Sachin, what is your survey showing? How are people responding to this? And, you know, I'm actually shocked. No one's been talking about what's going on in Delhi for the last 3 months, nearly 2.5 months.
So there's really 2 aspects of this, Tamanna. First one is the NGT order, which we all know says, you know, you can't ply a diesel vehicle beyond 10 years and a petrol vehicle beyond 11 years, beyond 15 years in Delhi NCR. So that's only Delhi NCR specific. I think to implement that order, I think that is where the real failure has been. I think that's what you've, you know, covered in your show so far, is that, you know, there is a way of going about this. The way it had to be was there had to be some kind of a guidance note that goes out to all these vehicle owners who are all in the ministry's database, basically, telling them, you know, that this is something that they are implementing. These are the various options they have. And, you know, a process laid out, because the common man today, the vehicle owner of these old cars, they don't know where to go. The scrapping centers are not functional the way they were supposed to be. The NOCs are not easy to come by. You have to go to the RTOs and stand in line and, you know, bribe your way through to just get an NOC to you know, sell it to in a state outside of Delhi NCR. So all of those things, there is no clarity. And to go and impound vehicles, you know, without giving this clarity, without giving this guidance, I think that is what is, you know, gone horribly wrong here and needs to be corrected. Now, coming to the survey and coming to, you know, the broader, you know, vehicle scrappage policy, which is beyond Delhi NCR, which is not operational yet, due to go operational sometime in 2024. You know, there is a fundamental flaw in that policy, according to people of the country, which has been reflected in our survey. You know, 7 times the number of people want the criteria for vehicle scrappage to be kilometer-based rather than age-based. So, if 7 people say that, it has to be kilometer based, only one says that it can be, age based. So that's the level of disapproval that the current policy has, number one, in terms of the criteria. In terms of the incentives, that's a whole different ballgame, which is, okay, you set a criteria, fine, we'll abide by it as citizens of the country, but there is not enough incentive somebody.
There's none. What is the incentive in Delhi? There's zero. There was supposed to be a tax rebate. You will literally get scraps for your scrapped car. In some cases, you don't even know it's been scrapped. If you go and sell it at 9.5 years, again, you will get scraps. Because it's hit its age limit and it's a liability as per law, even if it's running fine. So it's a disincentive. Where is the carrot in the carrot and stick situation?
Absolutely. There's nothing with the current NGT order. With the vehicle scrappage policy, there is at least some rebate on the road tax and registration. Yeah. But people want, a clear tax deduction, which is based on the invoice value of the old car that they are scrapping, which the Ministry of Road Transport has not been able to negotiate with the Ministry of Finance and get to closure. So today, as it stands, there is not enough incentive. Right now with NGT and Delhi NCR, there is no incentive at all. But even if the vehicle scrappage policy goes through, right, there is no incentive. So I think the entire policy needs to be relooked at. The whole, with the NGT order in Delhi NCR, the entire approach needs to be revisited, which is, completely stop this exercise of impounding, right? And, lay out a clear process, make the NOCs online, make it Aadhaar authenticated, use technology.
I want to just take some views on this idea that has come up in the survey. Hormazd, bring a scrappage policy based on kilometers driven, not on the age of the car. Does that make sense? Because again, then the argument will come, what if it's a very well-maintained car?
Well, yeah, I think, but clearly kilometers makes more sense than age. I mean, a car that's been barely used, someone just doing maybe, let's say for argument's sake, 1,000 kilometers a year, and then after 10 years, after 10,000 kilometers, still as good as new, has to scrap it. But at the same point, I don't think that's, I again say, look at an emission kind of a cutoff, because a car, let's say a BS4 car that has done 100,000 kilometers will still be cleaner than a BS3 car that's done 20,000 kilometers. So, we have these definitions, and we have the, when the emissions are, I mean, if you want, you could say that get all cars which, you can start off with BS3, get all cars which are BS2, BS1, and then even before that completely off the road, because those are the true polluters, and sometimes they typically contribute. The older cars, the really old cars, contribute for about 80-90% of the pollution. So that was one way to look at it, because it also is, a lot more logical. And 2005 is a fair cutoff, I feel, because after that, BS3 isn't so bad, or even 2010 for diesels, because
vintage cars, Hormazd, I know your love for vintage. What about vintage cars? Someone went to court recently and said, please don't take away my vintage car.
Exactly. That again is so stupid. Europe is very sensible. They have a certain criteria for vintage. They give them separate numbers, and then they let them ply. Honestly, if they want to sort this problem out, even with vintage cars, they have to do something very simple. Just allow cars to ply on the weekends, or even just on a Sunday, or between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. Automatically, these cars cannot be used for daily commutes. They can only be used for occasional use, or for, vintage events, or on the weekends, when as it is, pollution is much lower, because they are completely off peak hours. This total ban, illogical ban, it just doesn't make sense. You could start with restrictions, limiting the amount of usage of certain of these cars, making it inconvenient, but not, totally draconian. I think there were ways to do it. And I'm sorry to say, but I have no respect for the NGT, the way they go about things, totally ham-handed, illogical, and even arrogant.
Ham-handed, illogical and arrogant, and people are suffering. People are suffering. They are claiming today that there is corruption, that if they give a bribe, their car comes back. I mean, those allegations will honestly have to be looked into. They're making these claims on the channel. But isn't this complete harassment? I want to thank all of you for joining us. I'm taking